This message is brought to you by House on the Rock Fellowship. We're a church that serves and cares for the Miami Valley region in Ohio. Before you continue, make sure to access the notes from our download section of our message page and have your Bible ready. Thank you for being our guest.
I want to show you a picture that's about 100 years old. Go ahead, guys. Yeah, look at that handsome chap. You don't know who he is. I'm here because of him. That's my grandfather, Jack Benner Hickernell, about 100 years ago. You've never met him. You will when you step into glory. He'll be there making sure I get there on time. What do you guess is his profession at this moment? Go ahead, Pancake. Soccer what? Yeah, ref. That's exactly right. It's exactly right. You can't see it in his right hand. He has a whistle. He has a stopwatch. But he was a soccer referee. And that's what he was a soccer referee. He was also a basketball referee, something he enjoyed doing. And you can see in him the office of referee. Absolutely. I want to add another picture. This is Jack's great-grandson, Jackson. And while the shirt is different, he holds the image of his great-grandfather. This is Jackson heading off to ref his first soccer game a couple weeks ago. And you can even see beyond the image of authority, that's what a referee is. You can see a likeness between the two of them a little bit, maybe. You can see similarities between them. That who and what Jack is has been passed down to, sent down to Jackson, Jack's great-grandson. I bring that up because we are in a discussion based on an important truth. That the Father sent the Son, not to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. There's a sentness about Jesus, a sentness about him to save, to rescue, to act. There's authority there. An authority in Jesus that reflects the Father that sent him. But then Jesus says, as the Father sent me, I have sent you. That there is this passing down, this generational work of ministry. That as I was sent, Jesus saying, as I was sent to love and to rescue and to share and to usher in a kingdom, I have sent you to do the same thing. That there is to be an obvious image bearing in Jesus' church. That they look, they act, they talk like Jesus' followers. That you would be able to say, oh yeah, I can see the connection. I can see the family resemblance. I sent people, if you will. And so we began to unpack through John 21. What does it mean to be a sent people? A sent people through Jesus' conversation with Peter. A sent people are those who give themselves to witnessing, to catching fish, if you will. To going out into the waters of chaos in the deep and facing the storms to bring others to Jesus. It's part of our ministry, isn't it? To welcome, to reach out, to go, to gather those who are not yet a part of the kingdom of Jesus, bound in chaos in the deep. Another part of the church's ministry is caring for sheep. Jesus said to Peter, if you love me, then you will feed my lambs, you will tend my sheep, you'll feed my sheep. And what does that mean? To have a ministry that cares for each other within the fellowship. That's what we've been unpacking the last few weeks. But before Jesus finishes this conversation in John 21, he puts an exclamation point on it. That in many respects, the most important thing Jesus has to say to Peter and to the church is the last thing that he says to Peter. And so if you would, take out John chapter 21. I have a copy of John's Gospel here. The verses will be up on the screen for you to follow along if you like, or maybe you brought a Bible with you. Huge fan, that's awesome. Thank you for bringing a Bible. If you would like one, they're located in the seats in front of you. They're blue. The print is really small. It's free. You can take that home if you want it. By all means, take that with you. Everyone should have access to God's Word. But I'm going to be in John chapter 21. I'm going to read verses 18 and 19. 18 and 19. Jesus says some very difficult things to Peter. Catching fish is hard. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. Giving yourself over to the care of others within your fellowship is hard. Love is demanding. Love is a difficult thing to do. Those are draining. The mechanism by which we do that is what Jesus says next. Truly, truly, verse 18, I say to you, John 21, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you're old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not want to go. This he said to show by what kind of death Peter was going to glorify God. After saying this, Jesus said to him, follow me. I'm going to read through those two verses another time just so that we get a chance to hear them. But let me, just so you see the lay of the land, he unpacks a young version of Peter, and then he unpacks an older version of Peter. One where Peter will stretch out his hands. That's the language for crucifixion. It's a crucified Peter. It's a cruciform life. And then Jesus says, follow me. Let me read it for you again. Notice the contrast between the young and the old. Truly, truly, I say to you, truly, truly, again, this is really important. This is emphatic. You can't miss this. This is a priority. This is a really important teaching, Peter. When you were young, you used to dress yourself, walk wherever you wanted. But when you're old, you will stretch out your hands. Another will dress you, carry you where you do not want to go. This, he said, to show by what kind of death Peter was to glorify God. And after saying this, he said to him, follow me. Yes, a church is to catch fish, witness to a world in chaos, the beauty of Jesus. Yes, a church is to care for sheep. These are things from the previous weeks. Care, nurture, minister one to another, a context of care. And yes, a church, if it's a Jesus-centered church, are people that carry their cross. They're people that carry a cross. Jesus says to Peter, there's two versions of you, Peter. One's a young version and one's an old version. The young version, the immature version, is one who's driven by self, one who's driven by want and desire and pleasure. You pick where you're going. You decide what you're going to do. You decide what you're going to wear. You go and do what you want to do. You're driven by wants. That's the young version of Peter. We all grow up in that phase. We all enter life driven by wants and pleasures and self-centeredness and pursuing and chasing after freedom and doing whatever it is we want to do. It's the tension of the second Peter that needs to grab us this morning. But when you are old, the older Peter is a crucified Peter. A cruciform Peter whose life takes on the shape of the cross. A life that is bound. Where the young, immature you is led by freedom and desire and pleasure. This older Peter is one of constraint and restraint. One that is cruciform and crucified. One that binds itself to the sinfulness and the hardship and the depravity of others for the ministry of others. This, Jesus said, to tell Peter the way that he would die, the way that he would glorify God. And then Jesus looks at him. Follow me. follow me. That's a hard sell. That's really, we're not painting this at all. This is the Christian life. Jesus isn't holding back at all. To grasp really what is being said, we need to step back a little bit to a younger version of Peter that had a conversation with Jesus not too many days before this. An important conversation that happens in John chapter 13. Will you guys turn there with me, please? John chapter 13, verses 36 through 38. John chapter 13, verses 36 to 38. As you're turning there, let me give you just a little bit of context to what's going on. This is Jesus' farewell address. This is his last teaching and communication formally before he's to be crucified, before they're going to see him tortured and see him killed. It's full of prayer. It's full of instruction. And Jesus makes a passing comment, not passing from his perspective, but one that you might easily glance by. And where I'm going, you cannot go. Well, Peter kind of picks that up, and Peter asks in John chapter 13, let me read it for you. Let me get there. I talk so much, I don't pay attention to what I'm doing. John chapter 13, verses 36. Simon Peter said to Jesus, Lord, where are you going? Where are you going? Jesus answered him, where I am going, you cannot follow me now, but you will follow afterward. Peter said to him, Lord, why can I not follow you now? I will lay down my life for you. And Jesus answered, will you lay down your life for me? Truly, truly, I say to you, the rooster will not crow till you have denied me 3 times. Jesus says, hey, I'm going to a place and you can't go. I'm about to do a thing that you can't do it. And Peter's like, oh, hold on a second. Where are you going? What are you doing? Why can't I go where you're going? What is it that you can do that I can't do? I can do that. What I'm about to do, you cannot. Where I am going, you cannot follow. You're not able to follow where I'm going right now. But you will. You will. Peter, this version of you lacks the capacity of doing what needs to be done. But you will. Peter says, why can't I follow you? I will lay down my life for you. Jesus looks at him. You're going to lay down your life for me? Really? Really? Peter, before the morning alarm goes off, you'll deny me 3 times. 3 times. There's something about this exchange that's really gotten my attention over the last few weeks, like never before. The fact that Jesus would say to Peter, you can't do what's going to be asked of you. You're not capable of doing what the ministry is going to ask of you. Not right now. But you will be able to follow me later. Later, you'll be able to follow me. You just can't do it right now. That right now, Peter, you would rather have death for you instead of death of you. You will choose, Peter, in this moment to have things die for you instead of you die for me. Peter, you will deny me instead of denying yourself. Peter, you will deny me instead of denying yourself. This is what blows my mind. This is what I get tripped up on. Jesus literally gives him the answers to the final exam. He tells him when the final exam is going to be. He says to Peter, before the rooster crows, So we're now talking, it's only like 4 hours away, 5 hours away. You're going to take a test in 5 hours, and you're going to be asked this question, and this is what you're going to want to say. In fact, this is what you're going to say. You're going to crash and burn, buddy. He's like, I ain't going to fail that test. I'm not failing that test. When's the test? It's in 4 hours. What's the question? This. No, that's not what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to do. Now let's reflect on that a bit. Imagine, if you will, okay? I'm telling you right now, I will ask you a question in 4 hours. I'm going to ask you a question in 4 hours from now, okay? It's, 11:08? Let's fast forward 4 hours from now. You're going to be asked this question. The question is a simple question, okay? What's my wife's name? I'm going to ask you this question. This is the question. It's one question, one final. This is the whole thing. Pass or fail based on this question. The question is, what's my wife's name? The answer is Elise. That's the answer to the question. That's the right answer. In 4 hours, you're going to be asked this one question. This is your final. The answer is Elise. That's all you got to know. And you will get it wrong. Nah, I'm getting that wrong. 4 hours from now? Just 4 hours from now. What's the question? This is the question. What's the answer? Elise. I'm not getting that wrong. Why did Peter get it wrong? That's what I want to know. Why did Peter get it wrong? He knew it was coming. He knew what was going to be asked of him. He even affirmed that he knew the right answer. I will lay down my life for you. Everyone else might run. I won't run. Yet in 4 hours, that's exactly what happened. In the garden, Jesus is arrested. He's led to the authorities. He's being tortured, beaten. Kangaroo court is in session. Peter stands outside, warming himself by a brazier, by a flame. One person after another, 3 people. Aren't you with him? No, in fact, I saw you in the garden with him. Weren't you with him? I don't know him. No, I don't know him. You have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know that guy. Before the sun rose, Peter denied him 3 times. Why did Peter get it wrong? What was it that was going on inside of Peter? Was it a lack of knowledge? He knew. Jesus laid it out for him. He knew everything he needed to know from a content perspective. It wasn't a lack of knowledge. What was it that crippled Peter such that he could not carry the cross that the story put in front of him? He could not do what was being asked of him. How many of you have failed before? I appreciate your honesty. How many of you have failed at your faith before? Yeah. Was it a lack of knowledge? Is it a lack of knowledge? Yeah. Ask the alcoholic. I know it's wrong. Ask the person hamstrung by nicotine. I know I need to quit. Ask the soul bogged down by pornography and sexual addiction. I know this is destroying me. Ask the spouse who verbally berates or even beats his spouse. I know I need to stop. It's not a lack of knowledge. What is it that cripples and crippled Peter that Jesus said to him, you are not able to do what's being asked of you? This young version of you, bound to the flesh and want and desire, but you will. It's that we want to drill down on this morning. It's that which I believe will catapult our church family into a depth of ministry and a scope of ministry that we could only dream of. It's that which hamstrings your faith this morning. Peter did not appreciate nor understand the full scope of the battle between his mind and his flesh. His mind and his flesh. The flesh that wants and desires. The kind of thing where in the middle of the garden, as Jesus is off praying, and Peter told to stay awake and pray, Jesus comes back and repeatedly finds him, and Jesus says to Peter, oh, the spirit is willing. But Peter, your flesh is weak. Your flesh is weak. There's an important term I want to introduce to you that I want you to learn to grab a hold of. The term is being sober-minded. The term is being sober-minded. I want to show you a few places in Scripture where it is and what it means to be sober-minded. Let me give you. Sober-minded is three important words. One, it's being awake. Two, it's being alert. Three, it's learning to abstain. The sober-minded Christian is one, awake. Two, alert. Three, abstained. Let me show you some passages in Scripture where we see this idea together. That which enables the mature, godly follower to pick up the cross in whatever moment it might be. To choose ministry, to choose love over self. Then rather deny Christ, they will deny themselves. Here in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, let me show you a few verses. This is 1 Thessalonians 5, 6-8. So then let us not sleep as others do. Let us keep awake and be sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night, and those who get drunk are drunk at night. But since we belong to the day, let us be sober, having put on the breastplate of faith and love, and for a helmet, the hope of salvation. There's a responsibility for the follower of Jesus Christ not to slumber in this current age, but to be awake, because they walk in the day. They're not consumed by darkness. They are awake to the realities of God around them. They are sensitive to the promptings of the Spirit within them. They don't need to be poked. Hey, you know what's going on? Hey, are you awake? They are very much awake to what God is asking them to do. To be sober-minded, first, is to be awake. Next is to be alert. Here's a passage from 1 Peter chapter 5. Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Be sober-minded, be watchful. A follower of Jesus Christ is called to be alert. They are alert to the maneuvers, the schemes, and the lies of the devil. The same kind of alertness, had I told you, yes, currently in their building there's a giant lion who's rolling and prowling around. You would be very alert. You would be very alert. You would peek around every corner. You would look behind every single wall. The follower of Jesus Christ is called to be alert. They are tuned into the schemes and plans and the prowlings of Satan. They are alert to what Satan is trying to do. They are alert to what the enemy is capable of, especially for the sake of those that are around them. The call to be awake, the call to be alert. So the sober-minded Christian chooses to abstain from certain things. They're not going to let B drain them so that they can A, focus on. Here's a passage from the beginning of Peter's letter. 1 Peter chapter 1. Therefore, preparing your minds for action, being sober-minded. See that phrase, preparing your minds for action? Being sober-minded. That idea is also found in an instruction that Jesus gives in Luke. I want to read it for you. This is Luke chapter 12. Luke chapter 12, the calling of his disciples to be alert. In Luke chapter 12, verse 35, Jesus' instructions. Luke 12:35, stay dressed for action. Keep your lamps burning. Be like men who are waiting for their master to come home from the wedding feast, so they may open the door for him at once when he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds awake when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will dress himself for service and have them recline at table, and he will come and serve them. Isn't that interesting? Jesus says, my servants, my followers have a responsibility to be awake, to be alert, to be attentive, to have their lamps full so that that light is able to. So we're talking about a lantern. A lamp is fueled by fuel oil. So if you're going to have that lamp burn through the night, you can't afford to run out of oil. In fact, there's parables about that. Okay? There's parables about servants who weren't ready and had to go find oil and miss the return of their master. So I'm going to make sure that the oil goes toward that which it was intended. I'm going to make sure that my energy isn't being pulled away for this thing so that my energy is poured into this thing. I'm going to abstain from this so that I can focus on this. It's in the term to be sober-minded. Literally means I'm not going to drink that so that I can drink that. I'm not going to lose my energy to this so that my energy can be poured into this. And look at the beautiful promises that was just in that passage. When I find you awake, when I find you alert, I will come, I will welcome you, and I will prepare a feast for you. Jesus says, I will serve you. To be sober-minded means that I am awake to what God is doing in the world. I am awake to my responsibility to witness to a world that's broken. I am awake to my ministry priority of caring for those in my church family. I am awake to that. Your kingdom come, your will be done. It's really hard to do ministry when you're sleeping. Really hard. Some of you right now are completely freaked out because you think I caught you sleeping. And right now you are ferociously taking sermon notes. That's awesome. I think that's great. I appreciate that. To stay awake, to be alert, that yes, the adversary is real. Yes, the enemy has an agenda, but we are aware of his schemes. We are aware of his plots. We are aware of what he's trying to accomplish. And so we're on the look and we're mindful. And so that our mind can be given to that. I'm not going to drain myself doing this. I'm going to be awake. I'm going to be alert. I'm going to be attentive. Peter lost that. Peter missed that. And when the moment came, Peter dropped the ball. There's one more passage. Could you bring up the one from 2 Timothy? I forgot this one. And it kind of ties everything together. 2 Timothy. So Peter's writing to Timothy, his apprentice. Paul's writing to Timothy. Paul's about to be martyred for his faith. He's about to be killed. And so he's in prison. This is one of the last things that he writes to his apprentice. You can imagine every word counts. Every word counts. As for you, Timothy, always be sober-minded. Like, always? Like, on Friday nights too? Or just Sunday mornings? Always. Always be sober-minded. Endure suffering. You know how you're capable to endure suffering? You're sober-minded. Do the work of the evangelist, the witnessing work of catching fish, the witnessing work of gathering those lost in the storms and the chaos. Welcome them into the kingdom. Fulfill your ministry. Care for sheep. Care for sheep. Notice, sober-minded leads me to the capacity to endure suffering. Being sober-minded enables me the capacity to endure suffering. Instead, too often in our flesh, we find ourselves numb and dumb, don't we? Too often in the flesh, we find ourselves numb and dumb. We, in fact, are in a culture designed to keep us numb and dumb, to keep us sleepy, to keep us foggy, to keep us hazy, ignorant to what God is asking of us, ignorant to the schemes of the enemy. In John chapter 12, verses 27 and 28, we see how Jesus approached his cross. What was his attitude? Because Jesus says, follow me. So how did Jesus go about it? What was his mental space? Where was he in the moment? Okay? In John chapter 12, verses 27 to 28. John chapter 12, verse 27. Now is my soul troubled. Why is his soul troubled? Because he's about to be crucified. Okay? He's about to physically, mentally, emotionally endure the most grotesque, intense form of torture and punishment ever devised by a human being against another human being. He knows it's coming. He's seen it. He's watched it. Okay? The kind of torture and annihilation that's designed to take the human body to a breaking point and wheel it back just a little bit more. And then take it up to the breaking point and wheel it back just a little bit more. And stretch and prolong that torture as long as possible. This isn't just, hey, we're going to kill you. It's, we are going to destroy you. Why is my soul troubled? I'm going to have to pick up my cross. Okay? What shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? Hey, Dad, can I get out of this? Is there any way, Dad, that we could save the world and we do it without a cross? Is there any way, Dad, that we can rescue the world and it not hurt? For this purpose I have come to this hour. Father, glorify your name. The whole reason Jesus came was to rescue the world. And you can't rescue the world without a cross. You can't rescue the world without a cross. You can't rescue the world without pain. They go together. And in that is the glory. That's why Jesus said to Peter, and that through this death you'll bring glory to the Father. Again and again, John links glory and death, glory and death, glory and death. Death for the Father. For this purpose I have come. And then Jesus says, follow me. Follow me. What grips me is Peter's incapacity to follow. And what grips me is my incapacity to follow. And what grips me might be our church's incapacity to follow. Is it possible, and this should scare you, this should scare you just a little bit. Is it possible that the Spirit of God has destined that our fellowship partake on a ministry journey that radically changes the area for the gospel of Jesus Christ, but we can't do it? We're incapable. We're not willing enough or strong enough. We are too numb and dumb to follow him right now. And what is left is a people lost and forsaken and wandering. A few days ago, I was taking Elise out to her car to drive to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. We're running a little slow, okay? Normally she's out the door before 7 o'clock, but there's some fancy code that was going off on the refrigerator and we couldn't figure out what it was, okay? Easy, just unplug it. It's perfectly fine now. And so we were going out to the car a little bit later than had wanted, and both of us noticed this little person, 9-year-old, 10-year-old boy, we thought it was a girl at the time, long curly hair, kind of dancing up the middle of the street. Just dancing and prancing, fairy walking up the middle of the street. Okay? In my insensitivity to the moment, I'm like, go you kid. Have fun. Dance away. My wife immediately looks at me, call 911. That's what I meant to do. That's exactly what yeah, absolutely. calling 911. My wife, in her intuitiveness, was able to discern some things that I couldn't discern in the moment. One, there's an 8-year-old kid dancing up the middle of the road in their bare feet, up on their toes, not able to verbally engage other adults around them. So as I am communicating with the 911 operator, my wife is trying to get this kid out of the middle of the road. Because this road, the road that we live on, will quickly, within 1 block, terminate into Troy-Urbana. That at 7 o'clock in the morning is like the Autobahn. As cars are flying down the hill and buses are flying down the hill, as people are on their way to work or people are on their way to Miami East. Or on the other side of that road, it terminates in a reservoir pond with a fancy sprinkling fountain. My wife was able to get the kid off to the side of the road, but couldn't get close. The moment Elise tried to get close, the kid would bolt a little bit, dancing up the sidewalk. Cannot verbally communicate. I'm trying to communicate with the 911 operator. This is where we are. This is who we are. This is what we're seeing. This is what we're perceiving as the situation. This is what the child is wearing. This is what the child is doing. And child dances down the block and then immediately turns to the right to go up Oak Hill, which is just around, by God's grace, not the really busy road, but the next neighborhood block up. And Elise follows him along. Elise starts to give me hand signals, of which I don't know what they are, but I give her the thumbs up. Trying to relay to the 911 operator what's going on. I try to, as quickly as I can in that moment, because I don't have anything on my feet and I'm kind of a baby and I'm missing my Crocs at that time, make it around the corner. The child has made their way up onto the front porch of a house that is not their house, but is convinced is their house. I know it's not their house. I know who lives in that house. It's not this kid. But by God's providence, Elise is able to kind of quarter off the child up on that porch so that the child can't run. The child is rapidly banging on the front door, convinced that this is their home. Elise is trying to communicate, what's your name? Where are you from? I like your shirt, dinosaur shirt. Very, very limited verbal engagement from this child. About that moment, Troy Police Department arrived on the scene and began to engage with the child as my wife, in her maternal care and instinct, was able to help this child feel a safe space. Me, feeling quite useless at the moment, began to ask themselves a question. I said to myself, Self, surely someone's missing a kid. Surely someone has noticed that someone under their care is not there anymore. Because this kid should not be in their bare feet walking and dancing. This child should not be outside of care at all. And so I begin to walk back past our house to come to the next intersection to see if I can see any adults this way, any adults this way, any adults this way. I do see a white Blazer that's kind of back and forth like they're looking for, but I can't flag them down. In that moment, I start to maybe verbalize something. A large adult, a male, comes around the corner very quickly, very fast, 2 blocks away, barreling towards me. Not the kind of morning jog that you do in the morning as you're trying to get your steps in. Okay, it's the kind of running that a father does who is confident that he's lost his kid. And so I'm waving. I do hand signals that this is the universal hello. This is the universal sign for little kid. Have you seen my son? We found him. I thought it was a girl. In that moment, I'm glad, like, no, sorry, we found a girl. We didn't find a boy yet. That would have been bad. Yes, we found him. My wife is sitting with him at a house up the road. Police officers are there. He's safe. The exhaustion, the terror across his Father's face. I have tried everything apart from put bars on the windows. He always finds a way to get out. I understand. You have to be exhausted. And I walk with him up around the corner. I ask a question. I says, hey, I didn't see an ID bracelet, like a medical ID bracelet. Something that would have their name on it, maybe an address, maybe a phone number, something that would help. Do they make those? Yeah, they do. Do you know where I could get one of those? We can get you one. After we got Elise back on the road and I got in the house, got myself ready for the morning, I went back up because I was pretty sure I knew the neighborhood where that child was from, just to poke around and see, could I reconnect? And I'll keep walking back up to see if I can't find that family again. But I want you to notice something, okay? And I say this with respect, but also a tinge of reality. That child became separated from their care because the overseer didn't know how to take care of them. Not his fault, but his responsibility. Is that fair? If we could come alongside of him, we could help nurture that space so that everyone in that home could thrive. But currently, he was not able to carry the cross that child set in front of him. Thanks be to God, my wife was late getting out the door. Because I'd be like, fairy kid dancing up the road, cool. I was not intuitive enough to discern what my wife knew in a second. This child needs saved. I could not carry what was put in front of me. I missed it. Are we humble enough in our humanity to recognize a possibility that there's a whole lot more ministry that we could be doing, but we're just not willing to do it because we won't pick up our cross and follow him? We'd rather be comfortable. We'd rather be convenient. And we'd rather have it delivered here next day, that we have lost sight of the role of perseverance and being sober-minded and awake and alert. And instead of giving all of our energy to A, we drink it away on B. And because we have given ourselves so much over to chasing that drink, Satan has learned to use that drink to keep us from ministry. And because we've given ourselves over so much to the nicotine, Satan now uses the nicotine to keep us from ministry. And because we're so used to convenience and comfort, Satan has now got us hamstrung by comfort and convenience and is keeping us from our cross. But even to someone who failed as richly as Peter failed, the grace of Jesus says, come and follow me. Maybe a few ways that we can put this into practice, if you want to write some things down. how do we become a cross-carrying people? 1, embrace the purpose and the pain that comes along with it. Embrace our purpose and the pain that comes along with it. Our purpose, bring about in Jesus' name by the Spirit's power, the salvation of the world. His kingdom come, His will be done. And it hurts and it's hard and the cross is heavy. Deal with it. Being a good father, it's hard. Make better choices. Being a good spouse is hard. Make different choices. Being a God-honoring follower of Jesus Christ is hard. Time to make different choices. When Paul is invited into ministry and Ananias goes to him with the prophetic word of God, he says, you go tell Paul the ministry that I prepared for him and how much he will suffer for the kingdom. It's hard. And then Paul gets to the end. One of his last letters, Philippians chapter 1, the delight he has in being able to suffer for Jesus. Embrace our purpose. What's our purpose? Witness, care, love God, love others. That's why we're here. It's hard. Number 2, process. First one's purpose, second one, process. Process, is there things that are making us numb or dumb? Are there things that are making us numb or dumb? Do we need to sober up? Are there strongholds that we've allowed to rise up within us? Addictions and strongholds and compulsions, places where we've given Satan a foothold, places where we've given over to and that's made us sleepy, dreary, so much so that we can't pick up the cross when it's set in front of us. We can't do the right thing because we've gotten used to doing the easy thing. We processed our life. Boy, does that have a hold of me? Does that have a hold of me? Does that have a hold of me? Does that make me numb? Does that make me dumb? Am I not awake? Am I not alert? Process. Process. Do you need to sober up? Stop being a victim. Sorry, that's not in my notes. Dang it. My bad. Number 3, practice saying no. And practice saying no. What do you mean practice? To fortify your mind must be a volition on your part. You have to choose it. You have to choose to pick up the weight. You have to choose to say no. You have to choose A over B. Fasting is a great way to fortify your inner being. To humble the flesh is what the psalmist says. To humble the flesh. Practice weekly fasting, daily fasting. I'm going to say no to food so I can learn to say yes to other things. To abstain, to learn to abstain by choice, to bring about the death of self, to deny myself so I don't deny my Christ. To abstain from certain things, to say no to that so I can say yes to that. I've come to the place in my last 18 months where I understand, and it makes me sad, that there's just some things I can't eat anymore. That the refined sugars and the processed foods jack me up. I'm not talking about my GI, I'm talking about my mental capacity, the fog. And you know what? I want to be lethal. I want a mind that cuts like a razor. I want to destroy Satan's strongholds. I want to restore souls. I don't want a mind that's drunk and dumb. That's hard because, man, some of that stuff just tastes so good. But sober-minded says no to this so they can say yes to this. Artists, would you come up, please? I want to read one more passage for them as you're walking up. Thank you for your patience. Would you stand? I want to read over you a passage from 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 14 and 15. Let's under a space. Let's receive whatever it is that the Spirit has for us. Whatever God has ordained in his graciousness, his providence, the ministry. City on a hill, guys, I'm telling you. I'm telling you, I can see it. I can see it. A little bit of city planning and a whole lot of prayer. I think we're going to be amazed at what the Spirit of God wants to do. For the love of Christ controls us. Not my flesh. My flesh won't control me. My past won't control me. My addictions don't control me. The strongholds don't control me. The love of Christ controls us because we've concluded this. We've brought to the place where we know this, that one died for all, therefore all have died. He died for all. That those who live might no longer live for themselves, but for him, who for their sake died and was raised. He died for me. I will live for him. Thank you for sharing your time with us, and we'd love for the journey to continue. If you're a guest, would you consider reaching out to us? We would love to come alongside and encourage you in any way that we can. If you're someone who's joined us today and you are desperately reaching to find hope wherever you can, again, Jesus came that we would find hope. You can find hope today. If you want to send us a short note, a member of our Hope team would reach out quickly, promptly, to come alongside and see what we can do to encourage you in whatever storm you might find yourself in. That's why Jesus came. That's why we're here. Jesus said there's two ways to live your life. And a wise man, a wise woman, builds their life on Jesus' instructions. God bless.